Welcome back. My name is Chris, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at currencies and exchange rates in NetSuite. So first off, just to set a scenario to understand why this would be important in the first place, if we have a multi-subsidiary organization, let's say there's a parent company at the top that is reporting in US dollars, and then 3 child subsidiaries that report in US dollars, Canadian dollars, and the euro, you're going to run into a situation where you want consolidated reporting at the parent level, but to do that, you need to have exchange rates so you can translate the Canadian dollars and euro into the value of US dollars, so that can all come up into the consolidated reporting at the parent level. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the subject of currencies and some of the tools related to that. So with all of that in mind, let's take a look at this. All right, so here we are in our home dashboard, and we're going to start off by coming up to lists, accounting, and you can see right here we have currencies. So let's open that up in a separate tab. And this is really just going to show us a list of the currencies we're currently using in this account, which is a demo account, by the way. So you can see here, it looks like we've got US dollar, Great British pounds, Canadian, euro, Australian, and Indian rupee. And you can see up here under base currency, you might think that there would only be one that says yes, but in actuality, because this is a multi-subsidiary organization, there are certain subsidiaries that do have, for example, the Great British pound as their base currency. Now, just because I know this, the US dollar for the parent company, US dollar is used as the base currency at that level. So that is going to be really at the top what we're going to be utilizing for our consolidated reporting. But we do have several subsidiaries that are reporting in other currencies. So now that we have a concept of what currencies we're even dealing with, let's take a look at our exchange rates. We're going to come up to lists, accounting, and currency exchange rates. We'll open that up in a separate tab. And this is where we can see not just the currencies that we have, but also how they compare to each other. So Great British pound compared to everything else, euro compared to everything else, etc. And you've got the actual exchange rates in the middle here. Now, over on the right is where we actually get what I would consider the important information that we're actually going to be missing in this particular demo account because it is a demo account and it's not connected to real banks, or in this case, the most important thing is these rate providers. So the rate providers, that is actually not something that just comes natively with NetSuite. It's something that if you have a requirement for it, you will pay a rate provider separately to provide you current exchange rates for the necessary currencies. So examples of rate providers might be HSBC, Zignite. There are many. You pay those providers and then they basically get integrated and linked in so that they can provide, again, daily is pretty common, but you can have other cadences of exchange rate information as needed. And the method that the rate provider is actually supplying you with that information will be listed on the right here. So the way this works is as those exchange rates are changing in the just natural world, every day the rate provider would then do a drop into our system, updating these exchange rates, at least for the ones that we currently have, which is euros, rupees, Great British pounds, etc. So that would happen, and then we would have the effective date would of course be yesterday or today, depending on the situation. So that is our exchange rates. Now let's come to another tool, which is back here under accounting. And this time we're going to scroll down a bit further, and you can see here we have consolidated exchange rates. So let's open this tool. So coming to this gives us a very different view. Just to break down what we're looking at here, we have periods on the left. So this is very relevant to period closes. In other words, this is not just giving us today's exchange rates. This is period by period, subsidiary by subsidiary, what are the exchange rates? So you can see for January 2016, US West and US East, notice compared to the parent company, their exchange rates were 1 because the parent company is USD and US West is USD. So they both have the same. There's no exchange rate to talk about. However, coming down here for January 2016, if we're in Germany, then the exchange rate, which would have been euros in that case, we've got 3 columns here. We've got current, average, and historical. Now in this case, they're all showing the same thing. That is not what you would normally have in a real account that is getting new updated exchange rates every day. Then these numbers would actually be different. So current would be If you're closing off that period, the last day in which you're closing off that period, that would be the current. In other words, it's a moment in time. It's that exchange rate right as you're closing that period off. And that would be relevant for accounts that are on the balance sheet, which is also a moment in time. So things like asset accounts, liability accounts, etc. As opposed to average, which is going to be taking the average of all the days within that month, would form up that one number you see there. So current and average, if you have a rate provider that is coming up with daily exchange rates, is almost guaranteed to be different amounts. And average is most applicable to accounts that you're going to find on the income statement, which is be covering a period of time. And then with historical, this one's a little bit more niche in its use. Generally speaking, you're going to see it be similar or exactly the same as average. And historical is usually used for equity accounts. So specific accounts that have the rate type set as tied to equity, they're going to come up with slightly different numbers. So just keep that in mind. That is more of a niche use case. Generally speaking, current for balance sheet accounts, average for income statement accounts. And you can always come over here and go into filters. If you wanted to look at it by a particular subsidiary, you could simply come in here and say, I want to look at it for the United Kingdom. So this is going to show you all of the various periods just for the United Kingdom. And again, month to month here, we're looking at the exact same numbers. For any normal account that has a rate provider, you're going to have very different numbers going down through the time periods. So this is our consolidated exchange rates. Based on the information that's provided here, we can utilize this in our consolidated reporting. So we can come up here to reports. We can scroll down here to financial, and let's open up the balance sheet. We'll come to this, and let's change this for now to just parent company. So if I hit refresh on that, this balance sheet is now just showing us the parent company, which is in US dollars, just the financial interactions and the balance sheet for that one company. Now, if the parent company was just a shell company that was housing subsidiaries underneath it, then we really wouldn't see that much going on here. But in this particular case, it looks like there are financials for the parent company. But now let's break it out further. Let's say we're doing parent company consolidated, and we want to break out the columns by subsidiary. So now if we hit refresh on this, it's going to be utilizing those consolidated exchange rates to fill in this information. So we can see even things like Germany, United Kingdom, we're getting these in US dollars. In other words, it's using that exchange rate information to recalculate this and provide us one reporting that is useful for us at a parent consolidated level. Now, the last thing I want to show you in this video is the concept of revaluing currency. So if we come over to transactions and down here to financial, we'll scroll down a little bit. You can see right here, we have revalue open currency balances. So this is something you would generally be doing at the end of the month as part of the close procedure. You basically go, okay, no, we wouldn't do it for the parent company in this case. Let's choose Germany. So for Germany, we've got all of these various accounts in that subsidiary. Now, they're all in the euro, but we want to now, the fact that the currency has been changing, not in this demo account, but in real life, you'd have your currency updating all the time. We want to do a currency revaluation as part of our month-end close and make sure that all the currencies are updated for that particular subsidiary. So as a result of that, we've got all of these accounts selected below. Now we could take off certain ones if there was a reason why we would limit it to just particular accounts. In this particular case, though, I'm fine with the accounts being selected. We also can filter over here by account types if that's necessary. And all we need to do now is come up here and hit save. And it's going to bring us to this queuing page, which is very common for a lot of NetSuite tools. We can hit refresh and it will give us an update on how those currency revaluations have gone. So in other words, any of those open transactions occurring for Germany, it will use the current exchange rate to provide a revaluation on those transactions, which is important for the month-end close procedure. So that's a quick look at currencies and exchange rates and the various tools that relate to them in NetSuite. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and with all of that in mind, I hope to see you in the next video.